My boss humiliated me in a team meeting. He didn't expect the client's email that night. Before we continues, please subscribe and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps this powerful, life-changing story reach the world. The office was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator in the break room and the furious clicking of my keyboard. It was 8:30 p.m. on a Thursday. Most of the team had left hours ago, heading home to their families or out for drinks. But I was still here, glued to my screen, finalizing the pitch deck for the biggest client our firm had ever courted. The absolute giant, Omega Corporation. This presentation had to be perfect. My boss Marcus had made that very clear. Marcus was the kind of manager who managed by fear. He was loud, brash, and always took credit for the team's successes while blaming us for his failures. Earlier that day, he had dropped a pile of disorganized notes on my desk and told me to make it sing by morning. He, of course, left at 4 p.m. for a golf lesson. I rubbed my tired eyes, staring at the complex graphs I had built from scratch. I knew the data inside and out. I had spent weeks analyzing Omega's market trends, finding a gap that no one else saw. This pitch wasn't just a slideshow, it was my masterpiece. I saved the file, naming it Omega_Final_V12, and sent it to Marcus's inbox. I prayed he would actually read it this time. The next morning, the office was buzzing with nervous energy. The team was gathered in the main conference room, the one with the glass walls and the expensive mahogany table. I was wearing my best suit, though it was a bit frayed at the cuffs. I had printed out copies of the presentation for everyone, neatly stapled. Marcus walked in 10 minutes late, holding a venti latte and looking like he owned the building. He didn't even look at me. "All right, team," Marcus announced, clapping his hands. "Big day. The Omega executives will be here in 20 minutes. I want everyone sharp. No mistakes." He looked directly at me when he said, "mistakes." I swallowed hard. "Marcus," I said, stepping forward. "Did you get a chance to review the final deck? I added the slide about the Asian market expansion. It's crucial for their Q4 strategy." Marcus waved a hand dismissively. I tweaked it, "Kevin. Your slides were a bit dry. I added some flair. Just sit there and click the slides when I tell you to. Don't speak unless spoken to." My stomach dropped. Tweaked it? I thought. Marcus didn't know how to use the design software. This was going to be a disaster. At 10 a.m. sharp, the Omega team arrived. Leading them was Sarah Jenkins, their CEO. She was a legend in the industry, sharp, no-nonsense, and known for eating unprepared consultants for breakfast. She sat at the head of the table, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Marcus put on his best salesman smile, the one that usually charmed people who didn't know him well. "Ms. Jenkins," he beamed, extending a hand. "Welcome. We are thrilled to show you what we've cooked up." She shook his hand briefly, her expression unreadable. "Let's hope it's worth the trip, Marcus. Your competitors presented yesterday, and they set a high bar." Marcus laughed, a sound that was a little too loud. "Oh, don't worry. We're going to blow them out of the water." He gestured to me. "Kevin, fire it up." I connected my laptop to the projector. The title slide appeared. It looked okay, but the font was different. Comic Sans? No, it was something close to it. It looked unprofessional. I glanced at Sarah Jenkins. She raised an eyebrow. I looked at Marcus, but he was too busy admiring his own reflection in the glass wall to notice the formatting error he had introduced. Marcus began his speech. He was a smooth talker, I'll give him that. He used all the buzzwords: synergy, paradigm shift, leverage. But as he clicked to the second slide, I realized with horror what he had done. He hadn't just changed the font, he had deleted my data tables. The slide titled Market Analysis was now just a giant picture of a handshake with the word success written over it in bold letters. It was fluff. Pure, meaningless fluff. "As you can see," Marcus said, gesturing grandly to the clipart handshake, "our analysis indicates a strong partnership." Sarah Jenkins didn't look impressed. She leaned forward, interjecting, "Marcus, this is lovely clip art, but where are the numbers? I was told you had specific projections regarding our supply chain logistics." Marcus froze for a split second. He hadn't read my notes. He didn't know the numbers. He looked at the screen, then at Sarah, and then his eyes landed on me. The panic in his eyes vanished, replaced by something much uglier: malice. He was looking for a scapegoat, and I was the closest target. "That is an excellent question, Sarah," Marcus said, his voice dripping with false disappointment. He turned to face me, shaking his head theatrically. "Kevin, I told you to include the logistics spreadsheet in this section. Did you forget it again?" The room went deadly silent. My coworkers stared at the table, afraid to make eye contact. I sat there, stunned. Marcus, I stammered, I sent you the file last night. The data was on slides 4 through 8. You must have deleted them. Marcus laughed, a cold, condescending sound. Deleted them? Kevin, take some responsibility. You've been struggling with the workload lately, we all know that, but forgetting the core data for a client like Omega? That's inexcusable. He turned back to Sarah, putting on a face of long-suffering patience. I apologize, Ms. Jenkins. My analyst here is, well, he's young. He tries hard, but sometimes the details escape him. I can email you the raw data later myself. I felt the blood rush to my face. He was lying. He was lying to the CEO of Omega Corp, and he was using my reputation to cover his incompetence. I have the data right here, I said, my voice shaking but loud. I reached for my backup drive. I can pull up the original file. That's enough, Kevin, Marcus snapped, slamming his hand on the table. Don't waste Ms. Jenkins' time with your excuses. We will discuss your performance review later. For now, just sit there and try not to mess up anything else. The humiliation was physical. It felt like a punch to the gut. I looked at Sarah Jenkins. She was watching the exchange closely, her eyes narrowing. She didn't look at Marcus, she was looking at me. Actually, Sarah said, her voice cutting through the tension. I'd like to hear what he has to say. Marcus stiffened. Oh, Sarah, really, it's not worth it. He's just a junior associate. I'm the CO, Sarah corrected him coolly. And I want to see the data. She nodded at me. Go ahead, Kevin. Marcus looked like he wanted to tackle me, but he couldn't stop me. I plugged in the backup drive. I opened the original file, the one I had worked on until 9 p.m. The screen flickered, and suddenly the room was filled with complex, beautiful charts and detailed projections. This, I said, finding my confidence as the numbers appeared, is the logistics analysis. As you can see, by shifting your distribution hubs to the Midwest, we project a 15% decrease in shipping costs within the first quarter. I walked them through the data. I knew every number. I answered Sarah's questions about fuel costs and labor unions without hesitating. For 10 minutes, I wasn't the junior associate. I was the expert. But Marcus couldn't let it stand. As soon as I finished, he jumped back in. Exactly, he shouted as if he had said it himself. That's exactly what I've been teaching Kevin. I'm glad he finally managed to find the right file. He walked over and physically stood in front of me, blocking me from the client's view. Now let's talk about pricing. He clicked to the next slide, one he had made. It showed a fee structure that was double what we had discussed internally. Sarah frowned. These fees are astronomical, Marcus. Marcus smiled. Quality costs money, Sarah. And clearly, he gestured back at me with his thumb, I have a lot of overhead to manage with staff training. The meeting ended awkwardly. Sarah Jenkins didn't sign the contract. She stood up, gathered her things and looked at Marcus. We will be in touch, she said. It was the standard brush-off. As soon as the glass doors closed behind the Omega team, Marcus exploded. He turned on me, his face turning purple. You idiot, he screamed, spit flying from his mouth. You undermined me. You made me look incompetent in front of the biggest client of the year. I saved the meeting. I argued, standing up. You deleted the slides. You didn't know the answers. I am the director. Marcus roared. I decide what slides go in. And I decided that you are a liability. He pointed to the door. Get your stuff. You're done. Get out of my office. The room was silent. My team members looked down, studying their shoes. No one stood up for me. They were too afraid of him. You're firing me? I asked, disbelief washing over me. For doing my job? I'm firing you for insubordination, Marcus sneered. And for incompetence. I'll make sure HR marks you as not eligible for rehire. Good luck getting another job in this town, Kevin. He turned his back on me and started typing on his phone, dismissing me like I was trash. I walked to my desk. My hands were trembling as I grabbed my backpack. I put my personal notebook and my lucky pen inside. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I couldn't bear the pity in their eyes. I walked out of the building, the shame burning my cheeks. I had worked there for 3 years. I had given up weekends, holidays, and evenings. And it ended like this? With me being the villain in Marcus's twisted narrative? I got into my car and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The drive home was a blur. I kept replaying the meeting in my head. I should have said more. I should have called him a liar to his face. But I knew it wouldn't have mattered. He had the title. He had the power. I was just the analyst, I got home to my small apartment and threw my bag on the couch. I felt defeated. I opened a beer and sat in the dark, staring at the blank TV screen. My phone buzzed with texts from my work friends. "I'm so sorry, Kevin. He's a jerk. Are you okay?" I didn't reply. Their sympathy felt cheap. They were still employed. They were still getting paid. I was the one with rent due in 2 weeks and a black mark on my record. I opened my laptop and started looking at job boards, but my heart wasn't in it. Who would hire me if Marcus badmouthed me? The industry was small. Word traveled fast. Hours passed. It was now 9:30 p.m. I was about to go to bed and try to sleep off the misery when my phone chirped with an email notification. It wasn't my work email. I had been locked out of that hours ago. It was my personal Gmail. I frowned. Who would be emailing me at this hour? Maybe a recruiter? I picked up the phone. The subject line made my heart stop. Subject: regarding today's presentation, Omega Corp. The sender was sarah.jenkins@omegacorp.com. I sat up straight, my breath catching in my throat. Why was the CEO of Omega emailing my personal account? I clicked open. Dear Kevin, I hope this email finds you well. I obtained your personal contact information from your LinkedIn profile, as I suspected your company email might no longer be active. I wanted to reach out personally regarding the meeting today. I have been in this business for 20 years, and I know talent when I see it. I also know a bad manager when I see one. It was obvious to my team that the work presented today was yours, and that the errors were not. However, that is not why I am writing. I noticed something interesting in the metadata of the files you displayed from your backup drive. I paused, reading that sentence again. Metadata? I continued reading. When you projected the logistics data, I saw the author tag on the bottom of the screen. It matched the name on the white papers I read last month regarding supply chain innovation. I didn't realize until today that you were the author of that research. Omega Corp is not interested in doing business with your firm under its current leadership. We value integrity. However, we are very interested in the strategy you proposed. I have BCC'd the owner of your firm, Mr. Sterling, no relation to my lawyer, on this email. I think we need to have a conversation tomorrow morning. Please come to your office at 9 a.m. I will be there. Sincerely, Sarah Jenkins. I stared at the screen for a full 5 minutes. The owner of the firm? Mr. Sterling was a silent partner. He rarely came into the office. He lived in Switzerland half the year. If Sarah Jenkins had CC'd him, this was nuclear. She wasn't just offering me a job, she was intervening. She was exposing Marcus directly to the highest authority in the company. I slept surprisingly well that night. The dread was gone, replaced by a nervous excitement. I woke up early, put on my suit, the same one but I pressed it carefully, and drove to the office. When I arrived, the receptionist looked like she had seen a ghost. "Kevin," she whispered. "Security said you were banned. You can't be here." "I was invited," I said calmly. "By Mr. Sterling." Her jaw dropped. "Mr. Sterling is here? In the boardroom?" "Yes," I said. "And I think he's waiting for me." I walked down the hallway. I could hear voices coming from the main conference room. I recognized Marcus's voice. He sounded frantic, high-pitched. "Sir, I assure you it was a misunderstanding. The employee was rogue. He was sabotaging the deal." I opened the door and walked in. The scene was like a painting. Mr. Sterling, a man I had only seen in photos, sat at the head of the table. He looked stern. Sarah Jenkins sat to his right, looking calm and composed. And standing in the middle of the room, sweating through his expensive shirt, was Marcus. When Marcus saw me, his eyes bulged. "You," he pointed a shaking finger. "You have no right to be here. Get out." "Security." "Sit down, Marcus," Mr. Sterling said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. Marcus shut his mouth and sat down, looking like a scolded child. Mr. Sterling turned to me. "Kevin, please take a seat." I sat opposite Marcus. Sarah Jenkins gave me a small, acknowledging nod. "Ms. Jenkins has forwarded me an interesting email," Mr. Sterling began, sliding a printed copy across the table. "She claims that you are the sole architect of the Omega strategy and that Marcus here, well, that Marcus attempted to pass off your work as his own, butchered it, and then fired you to cover his tracks." Marcus sputtered. "That's a lie. She doesn't know our internal workflow. I managed him. I told him what to write." "Is that so?" Sarah Jenkins spoke up. She placed a laptop on the table. "Marcus, explain the beta protocol on slide 6 of the logistics deck." Marcus froze. The beta protocol?" he stammered. "Yes," Sarah said. It's a complex algorithm for routing. Explain how it works. Since you directed Kevin to write it. Marcus looked at the screen. He looked at me. He looked at the ceiling. Well, he started, it's a proprietary system for beta testing the routes. It was gibberish. He had no idea. Actually, I interrupted quietly. Beta stands for bidirectional estimation of transit algorithms. It's not a test phase. It's the core of the cost-saving formula. Sarah smiled. Correct. And considering Marcus just called it a test phase, I think we have established who the author is. Mr. Sterling turned his gaze to Marcus. It was a cold, hard look. Marcus, you told me yesterday that you developed this strategy. You demanded a bonus for landing this client. I oversaw it. Marcus argued weakly. That's what managers do. We delegate. Managers delegate, Mr. Sterling corrected. They don't steal. And they certainly don't fire talent to hide their own incompetence. Mr. Sterling stood up. I've looked at the logs, Marcus. I had IT pull the edit history of the file. Kevin worked on it for 40 hours. You opened it once, 5 minutes before the meeting, and changed the font to Comic Sans. The room was silent. The Comic Sans detail seemed to be the final nail in the coffin. It was so petty, so stupid that it highlighted just how out of depth Marcus was. I can explain, Marcus whispered. No need, Mr. Sterling said. You're fired. Effective immediately. What? Marcus gasped. You can't do that. I have a contract. Your contract has a clause for gross misconduct, Sterling said. Lying to a client and sabotaging a multimillion-dollar deal fits that description perfectly. Pack your things. Security will escort you out. Marcus looked at me one last time, expecting me to gloat. But I didn't. I just looked at him with pity. He had everything and he threw it away because of his ego. Marcus left the room, his shoulders slumped, stripping off his ID badge. The door clicked shut behind him. The air in the room instantly felt lighter. Mr. Sterling turned to me. Kevin, I apologize. I should have been paying closer attention to this branch. I rely on my directors to run things, but clearly I placed my trust in the wrong person. It's okay, I said. I'm just glad the truth came out. It's not entirely okay, Sarah Jenkins said. You were treated poorly. But Omega Corp is a company that believes in second chances. We want to sign the deal. But we have a condition. I braced myself. What is it? We want you to lead the account, Sarah said. Not as a junior analyst. As the project lead. I blinked. Me? But I'm not a manager. You manage the data, Mr. Sterling said. You manage the strategy. It seems the only thing you haven't managed is the title. Mr. Sterling leaned forward. Kevin, the director position is obviously vacant now. I'm not going to give it to you today, that would be reckless. But I am naming you interim team lead for the Omega project. If you land this implementation successfully, the director's office is yours. My head was spinning. 24 hours ago, I was unemployed and humiliated. Now I was being offered my boss's job. I accept, I said, my voice steady. Thank you. You won't regret this. I know I won't, Sarah said, finally opening the leather folder she had brought. Now let's sign this contract. And Kevin? Please fix the font back to Arial. We all laughed. It was a genuine laugh, the kind that comes after a storm has passed. I signed the contract as the witness for the firm. It was the best signature I had ever written. When I walked out of the conference room, the entire office was staring. They had seen Marcus being escorted out by security with a cardboard box. They looked at me with a mix of awe and fear. They didn't know what had happened, only that the king was dead and the exile had returned. I walked to my desk, my old desk. I started to pack my things, but not to leave. I was moving them to the corner office. The office with the view. My coworker Jenna walked up to me timidly. Kevin? What happened? Is Marcus really gone? He is, I said. And we have a lot of work to do. Omega just signed. The next few months were the hardest of my life, but also the most rewarding. I worked double shifts not because I was forced to, but because I wanted to. I treated the team with respect. I gave credit where it was due. I remembered what it felt like to be ignored, and I made sure no one on my team ever felt that way. The Omega project was a massive success. The shipping costs went down by 18%, beating my own projections. Sarah Jenkins sent me a bottle of expensive scotch when the quarterly numbers came in. On the card she wrote, "To the guy who knew the data. Cheers." 6 months later, Mr. Sterling came back to the office. He called an all-hands meeting. He stood at the front of the room with me standing next to him. "It is my pleasure," he announced, "to officially remove the interim from Kevin's title. He is your new director of operations." The room erupted in applause. Real applause this time, not the polite, fearful clapping they used to give Marcus. I looked out at the sea of faces, my team. I looked at the glass walls of the conference room where I had been humiliated. That moment had tried to break me, but instead, it made me. I smiled, took a deep breath, and stepped up to the podium. "All right, everyone," I said. "Let's get to work." And for the first time, I knew they were with me.